All right, welcome back here to Go and Preach. We're talking about the prophetic nature of the Bible and how it sets itself apart from all other religions and all other books that have ever existed. And just to give you a little idea, I'm told that the Quran only has one instance of a prophecy in its entirety. There's only one prophetic utterance, and it was an utterance that was given by Muhammad himself about his future return to the city of Jerusalem. Now, to give you an idea about what that would be like me saying, one day I will go to McDonald's. It is a prophecy that can be easily fulfilled in his own strength and in his own power. And that is very, very different from the kind of prophecy that we have in the Bible. And I'm going to give you one example of that. Now, during the Old Testament times, if you recall, the kingdom of Israel was once a united kingdom under the rule of Saul and David. And then Solomon became king. And during Solomon's reign, there was a prophecy given that the kingdom would be divided after his time. So when his son Rehoboam took over, there was a rebellion that was raised up by a man named Jeroboam, and God split the kingdom. 10 tribes went to the north, and they were with Jeroboam. They made Jeroboam the king, and the other 2 remaining tribes, 2.5 tribes, stayed with the line of David, and Rehoboam was their king. Now, during that time, Jeroboam led the northern kingdom, which was called Israel, into great idolatry. And during that time, he set up another kind of religion, another kind of worship, where they worshiped the golden calf and they burned incense and all that, and sacrifices to a false god. Now, during that time, a prophet from the southern kingdom, which is now called Judah, traveled up to the northern kingdom, called Israel, and he began to prophesy against the altar, that pagan altar, and the center of idolatry in that country. Now, this event took place during the reign of Jeroboam, that first king, and he reigned from approximately 931 BC to 909 BC. And he cries out, and this is found in 1 Kings chapter 13, verse 2, and I'm going to read verse 5. And he says this. I want you to pay attention. This is really important. He cried against the altar in the word of the Lord and said, O altar, altar, thus saith the Lord, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name. And upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. The altar also was rent, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. Now, what is so amazing about this prophecy? It's very simple. This prophecy was declared in about somewhere between 931 and 909, and it actually mentions the name of a future king by the name of Josiah. Now that man, Josiah, he was born 640 BC. That means 300 years later. All right, you got that? That's not like Muhammad saying, I'm going to one day return to Jerusalem. This prophet said 300 years in advance that a man by the name of Josiah would be born, and it says specifically about some things that he was going to do. Now that to me is amazing. Josiah was born in 640 BC. The real test of a prophet is whether or not the prophecy comes to pass. And I might even add to that, there also has to be some layer of difficulty to the prophecy, okay? The prophet himself was dead long before it was fulfilled, which tells me the prophet did not make that up. The prophet couldn't bring it to pass. Only the true and the living God could bring it to pass. And we actually find the fulfillment of that prophecy written now in 2 Kings chapter 23, verses 15 through 18. Here we have during the reign of King Josiah. Josiah brought a revival to the nation, and he declared that all the heathen altars should be torn down. And he even went up to the north, which was not even his country. He went up to the north to that heathen place of worship, and they decided to tear it down and destroy it to bring the people back to the true and living God. And here we are. We're going to read from 2 Kings chapter 23, verses 15 through 18. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel and the high place was Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, and made both that altar and the high place. He broke down and burned the high place, and stamped it small to powder, and he burned the grove. And as Josiah turned himself, he spied the sepulchres that were in the mountain, in other words, the graves that were there, and he took the bones of the sepulchres, and he burned them on the altar, according to the word of the Lord, which the man of God proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. Then he said, "What title is that I see?" And the men of the city told him, "It is the sepulchre of the man of God, which came from Judah and proclaimed these things that you have done against the altar of Bethel." And he said, "Let him alone. Let no man move his bones." Anyway, my point is, this is remarkable. Here we are more than 300 years later, and a man by the name of Josiah, the king, he comes and he fulfills the prophecy that was spoken about him more than 300 years earlier. And again, I beg the question, who can do that? Who has the power to declare something more than 300 years ahead of time, but also has the power to bring it to pass? You know, there are many fortune tellers who will try to tell the future, and there are many demons who will try to bring things to pass, but they can't. They can't do both. They can't declare the future and have the power to bring it to pass. Only simple things like Muhammad saying he would one day return to the city of Jerusalem, or one day Justin will buy a Big Mac at McDonald's. Those are very easily fulfilled in our own power. But only God can declare something. And that's how we know the Bible is the inspired Word of God. It is the truth. You can bet your life on it. You can bank your eternity on it. That what the Word of God says is true, because it proves itself to be true. Now come on back next time, and we're going to look at another inspired prophecy concerning the heathen king, who wasn't even a Christian, Cyrus the Great. So come on back next time on Go and Preach.